Now, we move on to our next session, the fireside chat. To get this chat going, we have Mr. Puneet Chhatwal, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, IHCL. Mr. Chhatwal joined IHCL as the Managing Director and CEO in November 2017. He's a global professional with over 3 decades of leadership experience at highly acclaimed hotel groups in Europe and North America, such as Deutsche Hospitality and the Residor Hotel Group Carlson Hotels worldwide. Mr. Chhatwal has won numerous awards during the course of his illustrious career and was also the first alumni included in the ESSEC IMHI Hall of Honor in 2014. Interviewing Mr. Chhatwal is Mr. Manav Thadani, Founder Chairman, Hotelivate.
Guten Nacht.
Say that again.
No, I rehearsed it enough. No, good afternoon, Puneet. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hosting us at this wonderful venue. I don't know if you know this, but 24 years ago, for the first 3 months of my career, the HVS office was in this hotel.
Good.
And for me, and it was September. It was the last week of August, the first few weeks of September. We had our office, which is now, I think, your Jiva Spa. That's where the business center used to be. We were doing an assignment for Taj. So for me to come back 24 years later to host this wonderful event means a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. So actually, on that note, may I share something?
Sure.
So 39 years ago, in this very hall behind, we used to lift tables at 30 rupees a day to take to Nehru Stadium for day and night cricket matches as students. So we got to watch the match for free. We got good food, plus we got 30 rupees for other extracurricular activities. The pocket money never sufficed. So
shall we ask the banquet people if they're still doing that? And I hope they're getting paid.
They are, but it's not 30 rupees. That's the difference.
Fair enough. You spent a large part of your career in Europe. You've been now back 4 years, or just a bit over 4 years. Have you got accustomed to India, or you still miss Europe, or?
First, on a lighter note, I love the fact that any event I go to, the introduction says he has over 3 decades. So since 4 years, it's stuck at 3 decades. So firstly, I'm not aging. So that's the best part of coming back. It's not your fault. Must be our office only giving this the background information. I personally believe that we are blessed to be in a business which is very global in nature. So it doesn't matter whether you're in India or you're in Europe or you're in US. Everywhere they cook with water. And basically, it's hospitality, it's service, it's a business of common sense, as I said first at your conference. So I'm quite okay. I'm doing fine.
And how did you get into the hotel business? What drove you into the business 34, 40 years? I'll let people guess that, but
I think actually it would be fair to say, not that anybody misunderstands in the audience, that trying to promote your brands. I used to live round the corner, a few kilometers from Taj Mahal or Taj Mansingh, popularly called. And a bunch of us used to walk down to Machan. The Kona coffee was for 4 rupees. Some of the people in the audience would remember. You could drink as much as you want. And you had a waiting for 1 hour or so. So I do believe that I had some senior friends who were doing tourism or hotels. And while waiting in the lobby at Mansingh, I thought maybe this is something I can also do. And I think that's how it started.
So there's an elephant in the room, and that elephant starts with the word C, COVID.
Thank God, I thought you said it's Chhatwal.
I didn't say anything, but do you rate this as one of the most challenging crises that hoteliers have ever had to face?
I think it would be fair to say yes, because in my 40 years, including hotel school, I have not seen anything like this where revenues come down to zero. You're imposed with a lockdown, whether you like it or you don't like it, you cannot do anything. In the introduction, you showed a movie where you start losing colleagues. Some of them uh, had difficulty getting the needed medicines, which we tried to fly in from wherever, Dubai or whatever else you do. Getting hotel beds was tough. I have actually not seen any crisis except for a few weeks post 9/11, where people were worried of getting into a plane. But this has been like 18 months where people have got this fear. And as you rightly said, going to a MICE event or going to a hotel, going to a restaurant could be safe. It is not the place which is spreading COVID. Yet, not just in India, across the globe, the industry has suffered and has been shut down. So I think that's very, very difficult.
So you're also chairman of the CII National Tourism Committee and on Tourism and Hospitality, as well as president of HAI. Having been part of some of them, I know you've been in the forefront of trying to get the governments to do more for us. Have we collectively failed, or do you see it as a glass half full? Do you think the government has done enough, or could they have done more?
One can always do more, but the needs and wants of every nation are different and the priorities are different. I do see it as glass half full. Some of us here also in the audience have been instrumental. When I look there, also Mr. Kachru, Mr. Berry, a lot of us have been very active. Very recently, very well articulated by Ajay Bakaya. There are many, many people who have contributed a lot. So there are 2-3 issues here. I think number one, those who are not members of Hotel Association of India should become. Don't look at the short-term benefit. Make your association strong. If your association is strong, you are strong. Then I come to the real point. A lot has happened in terms of ECLGS, which is Emergency Line Credit Guarantee Scheme. A lot has happened in terms of moratorium. A lot has happened in certain states in terms of getting some forms of breaks and property tax or excise fees, etc. Some states have given industry status, and that's the beginning. What needs to happen is the center needs to give the infrastructure status to the sector and include it in the concurrent list of constitution. Till that is not done, the interface with the states on the industry status will not work seamlessly. So we are fighting on all fronts, and we've created regional chapters, whether CII or HAI or all other associations. I would say the great thing is most of the associations align themselves in asking for what was needed. The unfortunate part is that the people feel that there was no separate package announced that, okay, we are giving hospitality 20,000 crores. But as you showed in your map, the road network, investment in infrastructure, investment in airports, investment in train stations, high-speed trains, etc., is indirectly and directly going to benefit our sector the most, right? So I think it's a bit of packaging, a bit of marketing the information, and some of the things which just don't make sense, but they get done. So you say, take whatever you are getting, and then we'll try to get more. Like SEIS got decided a few days ago, but with a cap, with a lower percentage, which is hurting the industry. But for the smaller ones, it creates cash flow, which is very essential. So yes, something has been done. Is it enough? The answer is no. The question is, did anything get done in the last 2-3 decades to that extent? Then the answer would also be no.
Sure.
I think people should applaud themselves because the industry came together like never before.
Yeah. So if there was one thing that you wish that government had to do or which they had done, what would that one thing be, which is still like number one on your priority list?
It all starts with the positioning of the sector.
But that's not the government's job, right?
It is, because if the government includes it on the concurrent list of constitution,
Sure.
using 75 years of independence as the reason to do so, because in 1947, jobs were needed. There was a lot of poverty. There was a lot of other things. Today, when you look at what STR had to say in terms of Indians making Maldives successful, Indians traveling to Southeast Asia, Indians doing all this, why not Indians in India also, right? So, as the good old phrase, I don't know, Shakespeare it was, or anybody said, charity begins at home. I think we should start at home and stop looking at the sector as very elite, people just getting good dinner and drinks and whatever we have. But this sector also works 365 days a year.
Sure.
There is no Holi, Eid, Diwali, Christmas, New Year. It's always there to serve people. And we all know the wages are not that attractive, if one may even be allowed to use the word attractive. So I think the positioning of the sector is important. A few signals have come from the government in terms of giving the sector again a cabinet ranking and having some state ministers who will get different or must have got different portfolios and jobs to do. So personally, I feel the opportunity is now, and any one of us who can do anything in their circle of influence to push things should do it, because it's for the larger good of the country. It will add to the GDP, it will create jobs, it does what we call lives and livelihoods. There is no easiest, simplest way to do than through tourism.
Sure. So moving a little away from talking about the government, I know we had Jesper just now give us a nice presentation globally. You control a significant portion of the Indian hotel market. Can you give us your sense of where we are, how this quarter is doing compared to the last two quarters, and are you seeing a change both in business and leisure locations?
Absolutely. I think we are in a silent period, and as a listed company, I can't say too much. But what I can say is that Q1 of this year, despite the second wave, did double the revenues of Q1 of last year. There should be no difference in Q2. The question is, how large would that double be? I think any hotelier here would confirm that. July, August, and the way September is shaping us post second wave is far better than any of us expected it to do. Leisure has been driving business. Many of the leisure destinations are higher in RevPAR than pre-COVID level. Some are not higher on the TRevPAR pre-COVID because of restrictions on events and functions, etc. But that will follow. On the cities, what was interesting was to hear Jesper talk about Delhi and Mumbai. I think the day Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru, Kolkata are back even to 80-90% of pre-COVID, then we cross the 100% of pre-COVID. Because the leisure destinations, it is anybody's guess, going from 100 to 250%, of the pre-COVID level. That means if you did a RevPAR of 7,000, it's quite likely that now you might be doing a RevPAR of 16, 17, 18,000 because
Right.
That's where people are driving to.
You also were one of the few companies in India that did not let go of employees, if I'm correct. When you compare that to a Marriott or Hyatt or Hilton or some of the other companies, you want to put a few words on that as to the thought process?
I'm not going to comment on other companies, but I can
No,
talk
on your
about us.
end. I don't mean you to comment on others.
I think part of this is the DNA of who you are and who you belong to. And I think as a part of Tata Group, I think it was very important in these times to be with the people. And it just, actually, even I am surprised. It just comes naturally. So I don't think it was prompted by anyone to do anything. It wasn't that you have to now serve the food or you have to host the medical staff. It just happens, maybe because the founder always said that and it's written all over in all Tata Group companies, that the community is not just another stakeholder, rather the purpose of the existence of any business. So, and I think that's the key, because we, and that a lot of people in the audience may not know this, is we are the oldest operating company of Tata Group. So it has to reflect somehow far more in the DNA than some of the younger group companies. So it's not Tata Steel and it's not Tata Motors or any other companies. So it is Indian Hotels. And the company just did its 120th AGM, with the first hotel, obviously we all know, opened in 1903 in Mumbai.
Sure. So you mentioned the word DNA. I know that one DNA has certainly come into IHCL, which is the development growth, which has never been seen as it has under your leadership. How have you made that transformation?
I didn't do anything. I have to say, actually, even I was surprised that it must have been Suma who decided to play the video. So I think it's the development is an art and a science. I don't think it comes because you know how to negotiate better, you know the contract better than the other person, do you can trick someone here or there. It's all, again, going back to way we define Taj. Taj stands for trust, awareness, and joy. We did that 4 years ago. And if you start living those values of trust, awareness, and joy, the rest just follows. So I think it's that easy. Of course, you need clarity. You need to communicate. You need to, I think it was said again by Yespa very strongly, collaborate.
Right.
So clarity, communication, collaboration, you do all these 3 C's well, the result is development. And
Right.
Development not only in terms of number of rooms or number of hotels, but in terms of development of your know-how, development of your tools that help you succeed. So I think the credit goes to Suma and her team, who ended up signing 70 contracts in like 3.5 years. I think that's phenomenal.
So thank you, Puneet, and to the audience. These are questions that are being put up by the audience. What is interesting on these questions is actually you can go to your app and you can vote on which questions you want me to ask. So the more votes I see, that will be the question that will move on the top and we'll ask. So we'll just take the first one, which has at least, someone else who's voted other than the original person. Do you think the positioning bucket will creep into the homestay sector?
What does that question mean?
I have no idea.
Who has asked this? So just somebody could explain the positioning bucket.
I think they're talking about your Ama Trail brand, and they want to know whether that will, because maybe IHCL is getting into it, will it kind of, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I think every company needs to find the sweet spot and why they do what they do. For us, I can share it very openly. We started with 9 bungalows of Tata Coffee, and we thought a lot of Tata Group companies have this problem. We can take it away from them and become an internal aggregator. This is the thought process behind it. That a COVID will come and then homestays will become, that is something I wish we were that clever. We had not planned for that.
We did the feasibility, by the way, for Tata Tea around 4 or 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Okay.
But
so I think they have been the largest contributor, including recently in Munnar. And this is how we started. That's one part of the story.
Sure.
The second is, one day I happened to be in Goa, and I'm a little bit sensitive to when I see the brands getting tampered. Very easily we buy something and put a little bit of Taj in front, a little bit of Taj behind. So I saw a board which read Tata, and then it said Strive, and then there was another somehow, the logo of Taj was hanging on a bungalow. That's called the Briganza House in North Goa today. And I said, what is this? Who does this? And he said, no, sir, this is the Skilling. I said, for Skilling, you found the main road of North Goa. It's like a prime property. We can do it anywhere, and we can do it much nicer, much larger. I said, would you like to see it? I saw it and I said, okay. I said, but there is a nicer one. said, where is that? It's just 100 meters inside. It's called the Cardozo House, which was for 20 years a piggery. And so we converted the Cardozo House and Briganza House as our owned properties into these homestays. So all this happened simultaneously.
Right.
And that's how AMA was born. Now, why others do what they do, if they see that there is a lot of demand in this segment, why, or they see a big future coming into homestays and everybody wants to have a second home and a third home, to quote and unquote you for these kind of times, and instead of giving it for 4 or 5 days to friends and family, rather have it rented and some brand takes care of the management. That's a different philosophy. But I was happy to openly share how we started. It's not like a plan that we did. It just came along and we thought it made financial sense without any capital investment from us.
Right. I can see more questions coming up. One of them has 6 people who have said yes to it. IHCL is one of the first hotel companies to have jumped on the homestay bandwagon and has recently crossed the 50 property mark. What are the future plans of AMA? I think you've also announced that you want to get to 500.
Yeah, ultimately, I mean, in the midterm, ultimate is, you never know long term what the goal would be. Midterm is 500, but by end of next financial year, we want to cross 100. And it's not something very massive. If each AMA on an average has 5 rooms, then 50 means 250 rooms. It's adding another 250 rooms over a period of 15, 16, 18 months, like we did in the last 18 months, because that's how old the brand is. I don't see that as a big issue. I think actually it could be higher than 100, but not knowing at the moment about third wave and COVID, let's stick to the 100 in the short term and 500 in the midterm.
I'm actually moving to the last question rather than why don't you have Vivanta, Ginger, Selections, and AMA carry the Taj brands? And someone who's been negotiating on behalf of the owners, I know this comes up, so might as well hear it from.
See, again,
the
there
elephant in the
are
room,
companies that go, in different directions. You go to a branded house versus house of brands. And we went into a house of brands. We were a branded house. There are other companies in this room which have gone from, house of brands to a branded house, calling everything through the name that is most known. The most known name will get you in the short term higher brand awareness, higher brand recognition, and will get you in short term more revenue. But in the long term, will drag your brand down. So unfortunately, when I came in, I saw that the Gateway Hotel, because it was TGH, became Taj Gateway. Some people actually wrote Taj also, who were partners on a piece of stone or elsewhere. And somebody decided, for whatever reason at that time, must have been relevant, correct, also to say it was Vivanta by Taj. In between also they wrote the president or the ambassador. My experience is people go to the president in Mumbai or they go to the ambassador in Delhi. They don't go to the Vivanta and they don't go to the Taj. If they have to go to the Taj, they go to Mansingh or they come here.
Correct.
Right. So a famous German saying is, let's not be more Catholic than the Pope. So, and leave the cathedral in the village. I mean, these are the 2 sentences translated from German. And I think that's the best. Each brand should be so strong that they're able to stand on their feet. If they're not, and they need crutches from the beginning, don't do it.
Right. So I brought this up. We are in the COVID, with COVID, things have moved. Do you think the industry runs the risk of going back to its old ways once COVID disappears? And is that a good thing in your opinion, or is that something?
No, I don't think anybody goes back to doing things in the old way. I think at the beginning, you said that actually.
Yes.
If you give somebody, a younger kid, a mobile phone,
yes.
Yeah, and then they are more open to trying it out. So I think there will be some who will keep saying, हमारे ज़माने में ऐसा होता था, हम ऐसा करते थे. वो था ना थे, मतलब it's past. And it's good to embrace change, and change is the only constant in our lives. And the one who doesn't change with time goes with time. So that's a very important thing to remember, don't block. Be an enabler and help people grow, organizations grow, revenues grow, profitability grow, instead of getting stuck in the old ways of doing things, and use this opportunity for the industry. Even though it sounds philosophical or preaching, I would definitely want to tell people, use this opportunity. Yes, it's bad. Yes, we have all suffered, but God has also given us one-time opportunity to correct the cost base, which we have all corrected. If we took it back to where it was, again the margins drop. If the margins drop, the less investment comes into the industry, then it is less attractive for everyone. And then we say, so what did we do as CII or HAI? What were you able to achieve? So
Right.
become so strong that people come to you. And one of the ways to do it is by becoming more and more profitable and providing superior returns to the investors.
So do you believe that it is time to hire from outside the industry for hospitality? Because we seem to just hire and just churn the people, same people from one company to the other. Why not look at other industries? Why not look at people and bring them in? Have you thought of that? Or
It all depends. We have done it. We keep doing it. We have the luxury of tapping into different Tata Group companies also. So
that's true.
so we have we are, as you asked this question, we are in the process of hiring a very senior person who has never worked in the hotel industry, but is a B school graduate, has been with the Tata Group and other American groups for more than 20 years. We have another one heading our marketing and brands, who's in Tata Consumer, Tata Capital, and I'm forgetting one more company in the Tatas, a TAS officer. So I think there are a lot of such examples, and it depends. Don't do it just for the sake of doing it. If there is a right fit, it makes sense, do it. If it doesn't make sense, leave it, because you'll have to correct your decision. It's more embarrassing. So avoid.
So I'm going to take the liberty of bringing up something we discussed recently, which is the 4 Ps of marketing we discussed. But I want to discuss the 4 Ps of Puneet Chhatwal. And we leave the first P out because that's your name. But would you want to dwell on the other 3?
Okay. But you have to give the background here. So this is a coincidence, because we talked about a bid which was just recently submitted, and somebody came from Patna. And whenever I hear the name Patna, it brings back very fond memories. It was my first posting after completing my management training program with the Ashok. I went to Patliputra Ashok. So Patna, 10 months. Normally it was considered as the end of anybody's career, because if you survived and came back was good enough. So everything happened to me that you have heard about, it has actually happened to me, from a kidnapping to dacoits to whatever at the age of 22. But I also met the most extraordinary people, bureaucrats, doctors, pharma people. I mean, I think Bihar was the happening place if it happens to you and you come back successful at a very young age. But before that, it was Pune, where I went first time out of home, protected child, living in hostel, going crazy at the age of 17. So I did a crash course in German there. And finally, like Ajay and myself and many others in our business, previously we were all graduates from what was called Cornell ESSEC and is now just ESSEC, the business school in Paris. You're 25, you get a fully paid scholarship. Even wine is paid for. Then you have very little to complain. It's a coincidence that everything started with a P. It could have also started with a D or a C or a A, like you said. There is a big elephant in the room with C. So for me, they're all with P's.
Well, you have the P and the C, so you have both of them.
That's a good one. That I don't know how many understood, but that was a googly and a Chinaman together.
So, so what do you listen to first? Is it your gut? Is it your heart? Is it your brain? Or is it your accountant? For decision making. Your gut, your heart, your brains or the accountant when you have to take a decision on the fly?
No, I think, as I said, if you are very clear in your mind, if you're able to communicate and it's built on the foundation of collaboration, then things happen. If it is tricky, if it is competitive, if it has some other ulterior motive, it goes down the drain. So, and people are not foolish. They can see through you. You know, they can see through, is this just a talk to, like tomorrow morning at 10, we will meet for a strategy meeting and we will discuss and define the purpose of our company, right? This is not how it works. So, or it can work, but you'll never be able to execute it. So I think it's, and over time it becomes experience and then people call it gut. There is nothing called gut. It's your experience. You have been in certain situations before. So you know approximately what to do. It's also your exposure, how much you've been exposed to, have you seen other things than what the majority has seen. So I think it's dependent, person to person is different.
Sure. We have a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes left. Your favorite holiday destination?
My favorite holiday destination. It's nothing like one favorite or like your favorite leader is very difficult. So, so I say
Your
no
team
holidays.
wants you to go for a holiday, Puneet.
I would say within India, definitely some people like mountains, but I somehow find something vibrant about Goa. And actually, it's the only place where I have taken a holiday. So I'm not a good one to describe where else would be nicer. In the recent past, that's the only place I've been to on a holiday. In Europe, I would say Greece is very good. Turkey is very good. Spain
So
is
let
very
me make
good.
it more difficult for you. Your favorite Taj hotel?
That's an easy one because there are 3 or 4, but
No,
my
one.
all-time favorite is Lake Palace.
Okay.
And for the benefit of the audience, we celebrate 50 years of Lake Palace this year. And I've been wanting to start the
Laksh Raj is in the
celebration.
audience. I think he should be.
I haven't seen Lakshraj. Are you here?
Well, he's registered. He'll be here.
Should be here. Okay. So hopefully we want to decide when to start. And if things are fine, the next 10, 15 days, we'll start the celebrations.
So thank you for that. Puneet, before we leave, the world earlier this year lost a great leader, Arnie Sorenson, who was the CEO and president of Marriott Hotels. And at the last HICSA, I had the privilege of interviewing him, and he's attended HICSA many times. Did you know him? Any thoughts you want to share about Arnie?
It says time's up, but if I have 2-3 minutes, I don't mind sharing
Go ahead.
a few thoughts. Arnie was a great loss to the industry. I think he's one of the finest leaders in the last 20, 30 years that this industry produced. Not just what he did for Marriott, his contribution to the industry through World Travel and Tourism Council, through other bodies, through conferences, through constant, lobbying with the White House, etc. He's an exemplary person. But more than that, although he came from a law background, he was a very fine, empathetic, sensitive human being. When you're trained to be financial controller, lawyer, that part sometimes could go missing. Not always, but sometimes could. And I have had personal incidents twice with him. Once, which was an embarrassing moment because he wanted me to come to the other side. And I remember Kurt Ritter and his wife, Lara Ritter, were like, what is going on? That they're standing 15 minutes at the staircase of Ritz-Carlton and talking. It's never ending. And it was very nice conversation. And I said, let's stay good colleagues. And the second time, somebody in the press did something which was not so nice, quoting him and putting us down. And then I never said anything to him. His head of development, Rick Hoffman, at that time, was on the same table as I was at the Berlin Investment Conference. And this came up because somebody else asked. And they asked Rick, how could Arnie say something like this? So Rick looked at me and said, I mean, with the iPhone, everything comes up. So if you put Arabian business and, something like this, it will all show up. Then Arnie sent the nicest note on his own, as Rick went and informed him, and saying he never said this. I have it till date. This was not also his intention to say that. He had a larger interview on a different subject, and he didn't need to do this. It's a global leader, and he was kind of justifying. But the way that email ended, I never forgot. He said, of course, he has all this love for House of Tatas and for Taj. But he said, don't forget one thing. If it has done anything, it has actually made you far stronger than you were before this article came out. So look at the empathy, intelligence, far-sightedness of the person. And after that mail, we ended up meeting him together. I was walking with our area director in US, Karambir Singh Kang, in the Times Square. And he was coming from the Marriott Marquis, and he's had all this cancer therapy is going on. And then we just froze and we stood there, and then we spoke for some time. And what a nice person. I mean, he was present after his first chemo, after his second chemo, after his third chemo. He was fighting it out. And till the end, he was working not just for Marriott, he was working for the industry. And I don't know how many people recollect the nicest video which came on LinkedIn on COVID and of what it means to let people go and how things are. I think that was right from the heart, and I think it was very, very sad.
So before we leave, there's a video of tribute to Arnie. We're going to play that, and I guess we'll move to the side.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.